My eldest is 16, her name's Alana. My youngest is 5, her name is Ella. They've both got fetal valproate syndrome, which has multiple complex difficulties, underneath it, that are affecting them in different ways. It can affect various children in different ways. So it's a developmental condition more than anything. So each developmental stage, you will see new things coming to light. It's caused, unfortunately, by a medication that I take for my epilepsy. Nobody told me about it with the first one, so it's a learning curve, and people, unfortunately, are still not divulging full information with regards to it. So it's basically learning as we go along. A roller coaster is the only way I can describe it. 1 minute you're up, 1 minute you're down, 1 minute you're in between. You get up in the morning, you just don't know what to expect. So the children can go literally Jekyll and Hyde, so 1 minute they're happy, the next minute they can fly off the handle, they can punch out. They're angels and the demons. The hardest part about it is they don't understand. They have understanding difficulties. So to try and get across to them what you mean is very, very hard. The thing to top it off more is they've got a lot of coping mechanisms. So they hide, they're able to hide a lot of things, so to try and get a lot across to people that what they're doing and what they're hiding and how you need to treat them, that's very difficult. So we've got to deal with the children in a specific way, but then we've got to deal with the outside world to help the children. We have been called liars. We've been called, overprotective parents. There's no need for us to think the way we're thinking. We've been discharged from departments because there's nothing wrong with them. We've had to fight and fight and fight, especially for the eldest, for her education. For years we were told by the educational psychologist, she's perfectly normal. I hate that word. She's perfectly normal, there's nothing wrong, she's your average child, she doesn't need any help at all. And then we get to the stage where we just go over her head, and we got told that if she would have had a one-to-one from the beginning, it would have helped her so much, and instead she's got to go in a resource unit. So the disbelief is really, really, really hard, because you just don't get the support that you need, and they don't get the support they need. And what we found with the eldest, it's not just hindered her and affected her educationally, it's also hindered her in her health and mentally. It's definitely mentally scarred her, because she has a lot of mental issues, depression and so on and so forth, because she just hasn't had the help that she needed, the early intervention that she needed. Whereas luckily, in a way, the youngest, because of everything the eldest has been through, we're able to highlight, and the school has been fantastic, it's a different school she's going to. We've been able to highlight all the issues and what could happen, and they've actually read into the condition, took time out to do it. They've believed us, they've seen her, they understand. So she's got one-to-one from day dot. So it's brilliant, but you get the two ends. You get people who don't believe at all, and then you get the assistants, but they're far and few between. Labels help to a certain extent, but I've found with professionals, if they're not black and white, if it's not A and B, if it's not wrote down in a book, and they can't give you X, Y, and Z, they don't want to know. They won't deal with it. Because I've found with a lot of them, they don't like to admit that they don't know, and they don't know how to deal with it. and they don't like looking into things. They like to make the impression that we know what we're doing, this is how you deal with it, and so on and so forth. Because there's a lot of conditions out there, for example, you know, Down syndrome, autism, this is how you deal with it, it's X, Y, and Z. With these conditions, it's not as simple as that. They affect them in different ways, shape and form. There's things happen with Alana that's not happening with Ella yet. There's things that have happened with Ella that hasn't happened with Alana, you know. So nothing is set in stone with this condition. There's no book, there's no little Bible. So they can't tell us how to deal with it. They have to do something as and when it comes along, but they have to believe us, they have to listen to us. But a lot of people just, they're not willing to. So we are literally banging our head against a brick wall all the time. To have the support is the most important thing. If you've got support network, you feel like you're not alone. You know, you're not the only one that's going through it. You're not imagining things. If you don't have support, it's horrendous. You go down mentally, you know, you go down physically, because obviously mental health affects physical health. And if you can't deal with things, if you can't look after yourself, how do you look after your own children? The children will eat certain things, certain textures, you know, they won't eat certain things. The baby's appetite is just, well, it's unbelievable, let's put it that way, you know. So she can eat quite a lot. It's not that she's large or anything. She has continuous growth spurts, which is also part of the condition. So she's 5 years old, but she's actually in 8 to 9 clothes. So because she is so tall, it's just continuous. So we're continually buying new clothes. As soon as we buy them, you know, it's replacing the wardrobe. Therefore, it has a knock-on effect to school uniform. That's not the cheapest thing nowadays. Shoes, they've got to have specific shoes, made by specific companies, you know, Clark's, because they've got to be fitted. The eldest has been diagnosed with hypermobility. The youngest has got mobility issues. She's constantly falling over. She needs support. So she needs the extra support around the shoes. They've got awkward feet because their big toes are a lot bigger than the rest of the feet. So the fittings are always awkward. On top of that, the eldest has got a condition where it's affecting her body odour, and we found that a lot of children who have got this condition do suffer with body odour. So what happens is, obviously she sweats, it gets into her clothing, we're washing her clothing, even scrubbing it with washing liquid, and we're doing it on average 3 times over to get the body odour out of it. So that takes wear and tear on the washing machine, the electricity, the obviously gel. We can't use a bog standard gel, it's got to be, you know, a specific brand. And then the uniform as well, we've got to try and get it out of that. We're throwing numerous amounts of blouses away because we can't get it out. She's got to have specific length trousers because her legs are so long. So that is literally just clothing. The eating side, like I say, finicky with food. Electricity, well, here, there and everywhere, you know, it's just sort of like, that's just through the roof. We've got to, as daft as it sounds, batteries, because the youngest likes lights and she likes music. So we're playing them, especially overnight, you know, to help her drop off. It's the sensory side of it. They've got to have certain sensory toys, especially the youngest. Books, we're replacing books because the little one eats them. They've both got pica. The little one's got to have sensory necklaces as well, and she chews through them as quickly as we buy them because she's such a hard chewer, so they're not cheap. We've got to get back into to hospital appointments, so I've got fuel for my car. That's wear and tear on my car. It's been in and out of the garage because it's not a new car, you know, so it's getting to that stage now. We've got extracurricular activities that we need to get back into too. The extracurricular activities were advised by physiotherapists due to the hypermobility, you know, to encourage strength and tone within the muscles and the joints. Without that, we will be back in a wheelchair with the eldest. It's just, the list just goes on and on. You know, it really does. I use a lot of gas to keep the heating going in the house because the house that we've been provided with suffers with mould. Some parts of it have been treated already, but unfortunately it's coming back. So if you've got washing hanging around in the house, then obviously we've got all of the moisture. So we've got the heating constantly on. We've got a tumble dryer that we have to use because we've got so much washing going through due to body odours and so on and so forth. It's, yeah, the list just goes on and on and on. Personally, it's stress and strain. Can we do this? Can we not? We have to cut back on this. Are we sure we're going to be able to afford the food? You know, but at the end of the day, we've got to feed the children. Because if they get to the stage, we call it hangry, they don't ask for food, but we know that they need feeding, because that's part of it as well. They never ask for food. Instead, what they'll do is they'll just go off the deep end. They'll get nasty, they'll get narky, you know. So we've got to feed them, the children at the end of the day. We've got to provide sensory things because, you know, what they're doing is they're eating wallpaper, they're eating tinfoil. You know, when the eldest was younger, she downed a bottle of nail varnish. We can't risk this. You know, it's safety at the end of the day. We can't stop the therapy that they've got because then their health will decrease. You know, it'll get worse. That's a knock-on effect to them then, both physically and mentally. We can't stop what we're doing, because it's their life at the end of the day. Why should they suffer? It is horrible for everybody. You know, I'm not saying we're more important. However, the needs of a disabled, and especially a rare person, are extremely important. You have no choice. There is no option of cutback. Things have got to be done. You have got the hospital appointments to get to. It's not just a case of getting back into school. It's not just a case of, you know, going and visiting relatives and having days out. That's the other thing. We need days out. We need to get them out of the house. If we keep them in the house, the behaviour is just absolutely astronomical. Absolutely astronomical. You know, I've got a child who absolutely towers over me, and she will punch out at me if she stays in and stuff like that. It's not through her own fault, it's just frustration. You know, they need that experience. But you have to take them out. You have to do the clothes several times, otherwise they're going to go out stinking. The peers then are going to take, you know, the mickey out of them, and that's not fair. Why should they get picked on? Why should they get bullied? You know, they have to have new clothes. They can't go to school in sort of like pants that are up past their ankles or skirts that are up round the bums. You know, they can't do that. If I send the youngest in with sort of like no necklace on or anything, she's chewing pencils, she's eating paper. That is dangerous, absolute dangerous. It's putting to the extreme, it's putting her life at risk. I'm not willing to do that. The support we need is advice. No one gives you advice now. You know, you have to try and find out things, but who do you turn to? There's no people to really turn to. You know, even some of the support organisations, they don't know where you can go. They can't point you to certain things. It's a case of you going out and trying to find something. But when you get mentally and physically drained yourself, you can't. It's so hard to do because you're fighting to keep your family going. You're fighting to keep your children going. And then where do you find the time and where do you find that mental energy to go out and dig somewhere else where you don't even know where to start? We just need support from somewhere. I don't know why it is so hard. You know, we're under paediatricians, we're under, the eldest has been under a paediatrician since she was born, you know, and nobody has ever pointed us in any direction for any type of help. You know, we've had to go and find groups. Even the youngest now, all these years later, same thing again. You have to go out, you have to find groups, you have to find help. You know, I only found out about a couple of grants the other day, and that was from somebody, another mum from a group, and she's like, well, didn't you know about these things? It's like, nobody tells you. Why don't they just give? Because near enough everybody, as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm wrong, everybody starts at a paediatrician. Why don't they give them a file or a leaflet with all these lists of organisations that you go to? It should be a standard handout as far as I'm concerned. As soon as you're diagnosed with a condition, doesn't matter whether it's a full-on disability or a rare condition, as soon as you've got a condition of some sort, hand it out to them. See what they can do. You know, get that extra support. If you've got the support from day dot, life would be so much easier. So much easier.